The top stories tonight in Y News. The Commission on Elections Second Division dismisses the petition of lawyer Theodore Ted to cancel Bongbong Marcos' presidential bid.
7 government officials have so far been exempted from the Commission on Elections resolution prohibiting the employment of bodyguards during the election period.
The National Bureau of Investigation says it has foiled the escape attempt of self-confessed drug lord Roland Kerwin Espinosa.
And motorists are headed for another oil price hike just days after fuel firms announced a big-time increase.
Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Monday, January 17, 2022. Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the Philippines and in other parts of the world. I am William Theo.
We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts in our website, untvweb.com. I'm Angelo Castro III.
First in the news, the Commission on Elections, or Comelec, has dismissed another petition seeking to cancel presidential aspirant Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos' certificate of candidacy. Dante Amento tells us why live. Yes, Dante, good evening. Go ahead.
Good evening, William. The Comelec Second Division denied a petition filed by some civic leaders represented by former Supreme Court spokesman Attorney Theodore Te for allegedly lack of merit. The plea asked the poll body to cancel Presidential Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr.'s certificate of candidacy. In a 32-page resolution penned by First Division Presiding Commissioner Socorro Inting, the division ruled that Marcos Jr. did not commit false material representations or lied on his COC, particularly when Marcos said he is eligible to run as president of the country. The division also ruled that Marcos was not convicted for a crime which constitutes accessory penalty of perpetual disqualification from holding public office.
In this case, sabi ng division, walang naging false misrepresentation. Kasi, number 1, hindi naman talaga disqualified. And number 2, dahil hindi talaga disqualified, tama yung sinabi niya dun sa COC na hindi pa siya nadi-disqualified.
Though the petitioners asserted the conviction of Marcos for non-payment of taxes from 1982 to 1985 that held him perpetually disqualified and it's a crime involving moral turpitude, the Comelec First Division stressed based on the Court of Appeals decision in 1997, the CA has no definitive declaration that Respondent Marcos is perpetually disqualified from holding public office. Comelec spokesperson Director James Jimenez also clarified they have no authority to determine whether a crime involves moral turpitude, which also a ground for perpetual disqualification.
In one of the final points of the division's decision, the division made it clear, made it a point to say that the offense of failure to file income tax is not a crime involving moral turpitude, that only the Supreme Court can determine which crimes involve moral turpitude.
The resolution also clarified Bongbong Marcos did not deliberately attempt to mislead, misinform, or deceive the electorate contrary to the position of the petitioners. In a statement, BBM's camp, through his spokesman, Attorney Vic Rodriguez, thanked the Comelec for allegedly upholding the law and right of every bona fide candidate like Marcos to run for public office free from harassment and discrimination. The palace, on the other hand, said they respect the Comelec as an independent constitutional body. Meanwhile, the three consolidated disqualification cases against Marcos still await for resolution, though presiding Commissioner Rowena Guanzon has recently disclosed that they have to promulgate their ruling today.
Whether or not it will be ready this afternoon, I think that's getting to be more and more unlikely. So we'll just wait for further announcements from the First Division.
William, these three petitions seeking to disqualify Marcos for the 2022 elections are pending before the Comelec First Division. And that's our latest live from Quezon City. Back to you, William.
Yes, thank you very much. Dante Amento reporting live from Quezon City.
Meanwhile, the Commission on Elections and an election law expert explains the various scenarios if a candidate's certificate of candidacy will be cancelled or the aspirant will be disqualified with finality by the Supreme Court. Nel Maribuhok reports.
The ruling released by the Commission on Election against a candidate can go to the Supreme Court. According to Comelec spokesperson James Jimenez, if the Supreme Court decides with finality that a candidate is disqualified after the May 9 elections, the disqualified winning presidential candidate will be replaced by his or her vice president-elect.
But from what I understand of the law that applies right now, that particular set of circumstances will lead to the vice president succeeding. Okay, not the second placer. Kasi nanalo siya di ba? Nanalo siya, na-disqualify lang, which means that valid naman yung election, disqualified lang yung candidate. So under those circumstances, I believe that the resolution would be for the law of succession to activate, and therefore it's the sitting vice president that will succeed.
The rule of succession referred by the Comelec is enshrined in the 1987 Constitution, which states that the President-elect and the Vice President-elect shall assume office at the beginning of their terms. If the President-elect fails to qualify, the Vice President-elect shall act as President until the President-elect shall have qualified. Jimenez also explained that if a candidate is being disqualified with finality before May 9 elections, individuals with the same surname can substitute him or her.
If a candidate is disqualified with finality, then that amounts to an involuntary withdrawal. If the candidate is filing under a political party, then the right of substitution applies, which means that the candidate who was disqualified and therefore involuntarily withdrawn will be able to be substituted by a person with the same surname. Okay? The substitution can be made up to midday of election day. At that point, a COC can be filed with the Board of Election Inspectors to show that the substitution has been made.
The poll body's spokesperson also said that the substitute need not come from the same political party because there is nothing in the rules that says so, Jimenez added. Meanwhile, according to Attorney Emil Marañon III, an election lawyer, an aspirant's certificate of candidacy that was cancelled has a different scenario.
A disqualified candidate, valid yung COC niya. So in other words, for all legal intents and purposes, he is a candidate. This is contradistinguished from a petition to deny due course or your cancellation case, wherein yung situation is sinasabi ng korte na hindi talaga valid yung COC, therefore it is as if na walang candidate. So in that case, yung second placer yung umuupo.
Nel Maribuhok, UNTV News and Rescue, we serve the people, we give glory to God.
Meanwhile, 7 government officials have so far been exempted from the Commission on Elections resolution prohibiting the employment of bodyguards during the election period. Leah Ilagan filed this exclusive report.
A week after the Police Security and Protection Group recalled all the protective security detailed to the government officials and some private individuals, the Comelec and PSPG approved the application for the Certificate of Authority of 7 government officials, including a candidate for representatives and mayor. In 168 applications of the private individuals, there are only 5 that were approved as of January 15.
Meron din po tayong mga case na nade-deny. Pero hindi po ibig sabihin na once na ma-deny, hindi na po sila pwedeng mag-apply ulit. Meron lang po silang kailangang dokumento o mga kailangang i-submit para po ma-approve yung kanilang application. Unless kung yung denial nila ay na-prove na wala naman pong existing threat, yun po, hindi na po sila pwedeng mag-reapply.
Major Casas explained that there are 4 reasons why some applications are denied. These include expired or lack of complete requirements such as no attached letter order, expired or no attached property acknowledgement receipt, no signature of certifying officials, and photo of protective security personnel not wearing proper uniform.
Yung pangalawa po, expired o wala pong naka-attach na property acknowledgement receipt. Ang property acknowledgement receipt, ito po yung katunayan na yung barrel ng ating protective security personnel ay issue galing po sa PNP. Government issued po yung kanyang firearm at hindi po yung kanyang private firearm.
PSPG also reminds their personnel to avoid moonlighting this election period.
Sa ating mga personnel na nagmumoonlighting, aking payo pigilan nyo na yan. Kasi kapag kayo napatunayan na nagmumoonlighting, kayo ay maaaring sampahan ng kasong administratibo at maaaring kayo masuspinde, ma-demote o ma-dismiss sa serbisyo.
The application for Certificate of Authority is until May 25, 2022. Leia Ilagan, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
The National Bureau of Investigation, NBI, said it has foiled the escape attempt of 3 detainees led by drug lord Roland Kerwin Espinosa from its facility. In a statement, NBI Officer in Charge Director Eric Distor said the NBI Security Management Section, SMS, conducted the inspection after receiving information about the escape plan. He said that on January 13, 2022, the chief of the NBI SMS and his executive officer received a report that Espinosa and 2 other detainees were planning to escape through the hole of an exhaust fan on the ceiling. Distor said that in view of this incident, security measures at the jail have since been tightened. Regular inspection of all jail facilities is also being implemented.
The new COVID-19 cases in Metro Manila have already started decreasing over the past week, according to analytics group Okta Research. The daily growth at National Capital Region, or NCR, is at -1%. Rosalie Cos explains why.
Fewer coronavirus cases were recorded throughout Metro Manila. On January 16, the National Capital Region, or NCR, reported 15,959 new COVID-19 infections. Professor Guido David, a fellow of Okta Research, says the daily growth rate of COVID-19 in the NCR has decreased to -1%.
Base doon sa data kahapon na nakita natin may 15,969 cases, ay bumaba yung daily growth rate to -1% from 2%. So, ibig sabihin, naging negative na, mukhang pababa na konti. Pero again, hindi pa tayo pwede mag-celebrate.
Apart from this, the reproduction number in the NCR further decreased to 2.67 from a peak of 6.16 on January 2. David said while the trend is encouraging, possibility still remains that visibility of the situation in the region is clouded because of limitations in testing. So there is a need to monitor the trends in the NCR over the next days to see if cases will decrease further. However, other parts of the country are starting to see increasing trends.
Actually, all over the country now, we're starting to see an increase in cases. Kaya makaka-affect ito doon sa sinasabi nating peak, kung ang pinag-usapan ay yung peak ng buong bansa. Pero possible na sa NCR, tsaka sa Cavite, Rizal, Bulacan, ay baka malapit na yung peak or nagpi-peak na tayo.
Hence, the public should not be complacent. Health protocols must be strictly observed, and those who have not gotten their shots must be vaccinated. Rosa Licos, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Philippines recorded 37,070 new cases of the novel coronavirus disease, or COVID-19, pushing the nationwide case count to 3,242,374. Of this, 290,938, or 9%, are active cases. DOH data showed that almost 98.4% of cases are mild and asymptomatic. Among the active cases, 277,020 are mild, 9,187 are asymptomatic, 2,947 are moderate, 1,480 are severe, while 304 are in critical condition. DOH also reported 33,940 recoveries, bringing the total number to 2,898,507, or 89.4% of the total cases. It also said that 23 have died from COVID-19, bringing the death toll to 52,929, or 1.63% of the total cases. Meanwhile, the overall global COVID-19 caseload has topped 328,135,901, while deaths have surged to 5,539,795, according to the Johns Hopkins University. The U.S. is the worst hit country with the world's highest number of cases and deaths at 65,700,210 and 850,600 respectively, according to the CSSE. In terms of infections, India follows with 37,380,253 cases and 486,451 deaths. In terms of deaths, Brazil comes second with 621,327 fatalities. The Department of Transportation implements the no vaccination, no ride policy starting today. But some transport groups says that the policy just adds a burden to public utility vehicle drivers. Asher Kadapan Jr. will tell us why.
Passengers of public utility vehicles, especially jeepneys, come and go with no specific pickup and drop-off point. This makes it difficult for PUV personnel, especially with just the driver alone, to check whether every passenger is fully vaccinated against COVID-19. Pinagkaisang samahan ng mga tsuper at operator nationwide or Piston explains this as it opposes the Department of Transportation's implementation of the no vaccination, no ride policy in PUVs.
Hindi naman pwede may titinan ng mga driver yung box card ng bawat pasahero at kung lehitim mo ba yung box card na, syempre kailangan i-scan mo yan para malaman mo kung lehitim mo. Tapos, ang masaklap dito, kapag mayroong isang hindi bakunado na nakasakay o masita sa mga checkpoint, ang mamumultahan yung driver.
According to the Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board, violators of the policy will be penalized with 5,000 peso fine for first-time offenders, 10,000 peso fine in impounding a vehicle for the second offense, and 15,000 peso fine in suspension or cancellation of franchise for the third and succeeding offense. Samahan ng mga transport operators ng Pilipinas or STOP is not fully in favor of this, despite supporting the implementation of the no vax, no ride policy.
Hindi kakayanin ng driver o ng konduktor yung panatili ng no ride, no back policy. Ang importante sa amin, yung suporta ng gobyerno. Yung solusyon na pwede naming tatulungin sa pagpapatupad para masustain natin yung no back, no ride policy.
On the other hand, the pangkalahatang Sangguniang Manila and Suburbs Drivers Association or Pasang Basta explains they are fully in favor of this measure by the government as it will help the country safely progress amid the health crisis. With this, Pasang Basta President Kaobet Martin explains its implementation does not significantly affect their operation.
Yung mga non-vaccinated commuters, konti lang halos din hindi naman nakaka-affect ito sapagkat 70% lang din na aming naisasakay na pasaheros kung madagdagan lang siguro to, mga 10% lang hindi na masyadong napapansin ng ating mga driver.
Today, the Interagency Council for Traffic or IACT records more than 60 passengers across Metro Manila who were prohibited from utilizing PUVs due to no vaccination. The DOTR clarifies that unvaccinated citizens may be exempted from the policy if they can show proof that they are unable to get vaccinated due to medical reason and if they are traveling to procure essential goods and services. They may also travel through private vehicles as it serves as personal bubble and provide protection against COVID-19 infection. Asher Kadapan Jr., UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Department of Labor and Employment urges employers in the private sector to provide paid isolation and quarantine leave benefits for their workers. Eileen Cerudo will tell us why.
The Labor Department wants to ensure safe and humane working conditions amid the surge of COVID-19 cases in the country. In a labor advisory issued today, DOLE said employers are encouraged to adopt and implement a leave program on top of their existing leave benefits for workers undergoing isolation and quarantine. Employees who can avail the additional leave benefits are those in close contact with a COVID-19 positive patient or an employee with a probable or confirmed case of COVID-19. Meanwhile, DOLE is already drafting guidelines for providing cash assistance to workers affected by the stricter alert levels under COVID-19 Adjustment Measures Program or CAMP.
Lalaan po tayo ng 1 billion pesos para po sa ating mga formal sector workers. Ito po ay para sa one-time 5,000 financial cash assistance po doon po sa mga maaapektuhan po ng level 3.
Employees in the formal sector whose jobs were affected after several areas were put under alert level 3 will receive a one-time cash assistance worth 5,000 pesos. DOLE officials are set to meet tomorrow to draft the guidelines and the program is set to be implemented next week.
Yun pong guidelines ay atin pong ipipresent sa atin pong kalihim and senior officials anytime soon. At kapag ito po ay naaprubahan na po niya, we're ready to implement po the CAMP 2022.
For workers and employers interested in applying can register at reports.dole.gov.ph and submit the necessary documents to begin the process of their application. Based on DOLE's data, over 30,000 workers were affected by the implementation of Alert Level 3 from January 1 to 15. Out of the 30,000, 11,500 of them permanently lost their jobs, while 20,100 temporarily stopped working or are under flexible work arrangement. The Labor Department expects the numbers to increase since the Alert Level 3 will prevail in several areas until January 31. The department assures their programs will continue to aid affected workers.
Nandiyan naman pa rin po yung ating emergency employment under TUPAD para naman po ito doon sa mga informal sector workers po natin kung saan po pwede po silang makapagtrabaho ng minimum of 10 days para makakita po sila ng prevailing minimum wage in the region. And then, meron din po tayong mga livelihood assistance doon naman po sa gustong mag-umpisa ng sarili po nilang mga negosyo.
Eileen Cerudo, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Many people have been infected in the country due to the rapid spread of the Omicron variant of concern. According to experts, a booster dose is an additional protection against COVID-19 variants. But when is the best time to get a booster dose after getting infected with COVID-19? Our health correspondent Aiko Miguel will give us the details live. Aiko, go ahead.
Yes, Diego, good evening. Vaccine Expert Panel or VEP Chair and Head of Technical Working Group for COVID-19 vaccines, Dr. Nina Gloriani recommends that booster dose should be administered after an individual has fully recovered from the virus. An individual should also wait for weeks after recovering from COVID-19. Dr. Gloriani also explains a person should complete the prescribed isolation and quarantine period whatever the vaccination status of an individual is before getting a booster shot. Here is Dr. Nina Gloriani, Chair of the VEP.
Kung meron pang kahit konting symptoms, you do not want to go to a vaccination center and start a super spreader event, no? Kahit konti na lang yan. Normally, konti na lang after, let us say, 2 weeks.
Well, Diego, this is also the recommendation of the Department of Health.
So we had been advising our general public already, as soon as you do not have symptoms anymore and you have completed your isolation period, maaari na po kayong makareceive ng inyong booster shot.
Dr. Gloriani further said a person should fully recover, meaning showing no respiratory symptoms before getting a booster dose.
Meron ding mga individuals na takes them longer to become negative, pero wala na silang symptoms. So first is dapat completely resolved or recovered, wala ng medications. 2 is they meet yung criteria for isolation. Nyari, lampas na sila, then that's fine. Pero nyari, gumaling before the ending of the isolation. Hindi pa rin pwede. Kasi meron tayong IATF guidelines on isolation and quarantine. No?
The vaccine expert also said that an individual who recovered has neutralizing antibody that can provide protection against COVID-19 variants. If a person's neutralizing antibody is still high after recovery, it is not yet advisable to get a booster shot. But this doesn't mean a COVID-19 survivor, especially fully vaccinated, can be complacent.
Tataas yung antibody levels mo. And that may last, we do not know pa, kung yung natural immunity following a breakthrough infection will last 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. I would go for a longer period kasi nga, meron kang antibody na na-generate na boost after a breakthrough infection. So, kasi pag masyadong mataas pa antibodies, hindi rin magandang magbigay ng bakuna. Not that it will cause any harm, hindi, no? Pero sayang naman, no?
Diego, Dr. Gloriani also said that A2 sector, or those senior citizens, and A3 sector, or immunocompromised individuals, should immediately get their booster dose after full recovery. Homologous booster is recommended.
Kung meron kang maraming possible na sakit na makes you somehow immunocompromised. Of course, clearly yung immunocompromised, kunyari na bakunahan, nagka-breakthrough, kailangan bakunahan agad ulit yun. Kasi yung kanilang immunity talagang mababa. No? Yung mga matatanda at may mga comorbidities, they should receive the vaccine as soon as possible after full recovery. Kung meron silang contraindications to these heterologous vaccines, hindi nila pwedeng i-take. So they would be better off with a homologous vaccine.
The PAP and DOH recommendations are also aligned with the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention guidelines that there's no definite interval when a person should wait after recovery from acute illness to get a booster dose. While some experts say it makes sense to wait 30 to 90 days before getting booster dose because of the antibody a person develops after recovery. Experts emphasize it is best to seek a doctor's advice after having COVID-19 infection to ensure you are fit to receive a booster jab. And that is the latest live. Back to you, William. Diego.
Thank you, Aiko Miguel, reporting live from Quezon City.
For the news abroad, located 30 kilometers southeast of Tonga, the Hunga-Ha'apai volcano erupted on Friday, and the second time again on Saturday. Tsunamis were triggered, taking down all forms of communication in the ash-covered island. Ia de Vera will tell us the details live. Good evening, Ia.
Good evening, LC. With difficulty establishing communications with Tongan officials, the Australian and New Zealand government are now working together in close contact to help assess the damages and state of Tonga in the aftermath of the volcanic eruption and tsunamis. The Australian government, according to Prime Minister Scott Morrison, has now sent over the Defence Force P-8 aerial surveillance flight as Tonga accepted the offer, which was scheduled to depart from Brisbane, Australia today as soon as volcanic ash subsided. The New Zealand government has also started an initial $500,000 Tonga relief plan and has sent a reconnaissance flight over to Tonga today. They have also prepared their Hercules aircraft containing food and water supplies, according to Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern. Navy vessels are now also being prepared. Currently, no mass casualties in Tonga have been reported, said Australia's Pacific Minister Zed Seselja, adding that the airport in the island remains in good condition. However, roads and bridges have suffered significant damage. Meanwhile, the ash which erupted from the volcano have now made their way to the east coast of Australia. Added to that, tsunami warning were alerted in many parts of the world, including Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Canada, British Columbia, and the United States. Elsie?
Yeah, when was the last volcanic activity of the Tonga Ha'apai volcano?
Yes, Elsie, the last series of volcanic eruptions were back in 2015. However, this current eruption is said to be the biggest in the last 30 years following the 1991 eruption of Mount Pinatubo in the Philippines. Elsie, data also shows this is the pattern every 1,000 years, with the last massive eruption in the year 1100. Elsie?
Thank you, Ia De Vera, reporting live from New Zealand. Thousands of flights have been either delayed or canceled around the United States as a winter storm hits the East Coast on the holiday weekend. A major winter storm slammed much of the eastern United States with snow, ice, and high winds on Sunday, causing widespread travel disruptions and power outages. More than 3,000 flights within, into, or out of the United States were canceled on Sunday, and over 8,000 flights were delayed, according to FlightAware data. Among the hardest hit were American Airlines, Southwest, and Delta. American Airlines said it is allowing customers affected by the weathers to rebook flights without a fee. Thousands of protesters took to the streets of Amsterdam in opposition to the government's COVID-19 restrictions and vaccination campaign. Ruth Bahe tells us why live. Yes, Ruth?
Elsie, due to uncertainty about how Omicron wave will affect hospital capacity, bars, restaurants, and cultural venues in the Netherlands have been instructed by the authorities to remain closed. Thousands of Dutch, including farmers who drove to Amsterdam and parked tractors along the Central Museum Square Sunday, rallied for their freedom as the COVID-19 lockdown measure is extended until January 25. The protesters played music, chanted anti-government slogans, and marched along the main roads, blocking traffic in the capital. Authorities scattered across several locations in the city to conduct stop and search, while scores of riot police vans patrolled neighborhoods, ensuring that there is no violent confrontation held with the anti-fascist activists. The Netherlands had one of Europe's toughest lockdowns since December last year, affecting mostly the entertainment industry and education. Elsie?
Ruth, what's the current data of COVID infections in the Netherlands?
Elsie, the infections there reached another record high of more than 36,000 on Sunday. This is despite COVID-19 restrictions that's still in place. Officials say that most people do not follow the COVID measures set by the government, thus the number continues to rise. Back to you, Elsie.
Thank you, Ruth Bahe, for that live report. Novak Djokovic has been deported from Australia for attempting to breach entry rules. Mavian Dog will give us the details live. Maeve, please go ahead.
Elsie, the number one men's tennis player, will be missing out in this year's Australian Open, as the Federal Court of Australia cancels his visa for insufficient evidence of medical exemption from vaccination. This compromises his chances of winning a 10th Australian Open crown and a record 21st Grand Slam title. Djokovic said in a statement that while he respects the court's ruling, he is extremely disappointed that the court rejected his appeal to challenge the immigration minister's decision. He further expressed how he was uncomfortable that the focus has been on him for the past few weeks rather than the game and tournament. As a result of the court's ruling and the 3-year ban under the Migration Act, Djokovic could also possibly be barred from the 2023 and 2024 Australian Opens. Meanwhile, some of tennis world's most prominent players reacted with both disappointment and silence, publicly expressing their dissatisfaction over Djokovic's deportation consuming attention just days before the Grand Slam. Some offered their support to him, while some chose not to address the event on social media. Elsie?
So, Maeve, you mentioned that he could be barred from the 2023 and 2024 Australian Open. But is there any way that Djokovic might be able to lift the ban?
Elsie, a room for exemption can be made for Djokovic. The 3-year ban mentioned can be waived for compelling and compassionate grounds that affect the interests of Australia or its citizens and permanent resident. Now, according to former Deputy Secretary of the Immigration Department, Abul Ribsi, Djokovic may be able to waive the ban by petitioning to the government that his presence at the Australian Open would help national interests. But whether this is true or not will be a matter of opinion. Back to you, Elsie.
Thank you, Mavian Dog, reporting live from Australia. And those are the reasons behind the news in other parts of the globe. I am Elsie Marcos, live from Auckland, New Zealand. Good evening.
Meanwhile, the National Water Resources Board decided to retain water allocation in Metro Manila despite the decreasing water level of Angat Dam. JP Nunez will tell us why.
Metro Manila is still under Alert Level 3 restriction, limiting mobility of residents, especially unvaccinated individuals. Due to this, MWSS projects that the demand of water supply will increase in the coming months. With this situation, National Water Resources Board or NWRB decided to retain the water allocation in the National Capital Region. NWRB Executive Director Civilio David explains that residents need water supply for their hygiene, sanitation, and disinfection to help prevent the spread of COVID-19.
Sa ngayon ay nasa panahon pa rin po tayo ng pandemya, no? At alam po naman natin na ang sa ganitong pandemya, isa sa mga inaasahan nating makakatulong dun po sa patuloy na paglaganap or para po mapigilan yung paglaganap nitong virus na to ay yung tubig po, no, sa hygiene at sanitation, no? Kagaya po ng paghuhugas ng kamay, no, yung mga frequent hand washing, even yung pagligo or paglilinis ng mga kapaligiran natin ay kinakailangan po ng gagamit ng tubig at maasahan po natin na tataas talaga ang konsumo.
MWSS assures consumers that water supply in Metro Manila are still enough, but they are also making interventions to prepare once water shortage may occur during dry season.
On the part of MWSS, we want to make sure na pagbukas nila ng gripo nila may tubig para that is one way of eradicating the infection of coronavirus.
From the latest monitoring of Pag-asa Today, Angat Dam, which brings about 95% of water supply in Metro Manila, records a decrease in water level. It recorded 199.44 meters, which was lower than 199.86 meters yesterday, and a meter away from 200-meter water level last week.
Wala akong natanggap na mga sinatawag nating mga pag-ulan, no, doon po sa watershed ng Angat, no. Nito po mga bago po magtapos ang taon. Kasi sinasabi nga natin dapat po bago mag-end ng isang taon ay mga 212 po 'yan. At nangyari nga po mga 200.2.8 lang po bago magtapos ang taon.
Meanwhile, MWSS coordinated with the water concessionaires to prepare for possible water shortage. Among the interventions are the approval for water treatment facilities in Marikina City and Cardona, Rizal to collect water supplies in Marikina River and Laguna Lake as alternative source of water. Manila Water and Maynilad also set deep wells in Metro Manila which was be used by residents in case of water shortage.
We have cooperated with the NWRD para ihanda natin yung mga deep wells natin. Ito yung mga deep wells na mga standby that can be operated. On the side of Manila Water, we can get a yield of 100 million liters per day. On the side of Maynila naman, 15 million liters per day.
Consumers are advised to conserve water to avoid shortage, and for water in Angat Dam will last until rainy season. JP Nunez, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Another round of oil price hikes will be implemented this week as announced by oil firms. In separate advisories, Philippines Shell Petroleum Corporation, Chevron Philippines Inc., or Caltex and Sea Oil Philippines Inc. said they will adjust the prices of per liter of gasoline by 90 centavos, diesel by 1 peso and 80 centavos, and kerosene by 2 pesos and 30 centavos. Petrogas and Clean Fuel said they will also implement the same price increases except for kerosene. The price adjustment will take effect on Tuesday, January 18. This marks the third straight week of fuel price increases. Other oil firms have yet to make similar announcements for this week. And before we close, we will leave you with the word giving glory to God from the book of John 7:24. It says, "Judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment." And those are the reasons behind the news, January 17, 2022. Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. I'm Angelo Castro III.
And because we need to know, we will always ask why. I am William Theo. We serve the people. We give glory to God.